All right. I was getting a few emails, questions about the frame guide, and I thought that rather than try to answer everybody's individual questions, it might be more fruitful, more productive if I do a video on creating the frame guide. Um, so this should be viewed in tandem with the one that I have on Canvas with Tyler Beck. I'm going to present a little bit different way of approaching this model, not because Tyler's way is not good or my way is better, but just to show you that there's another way. And also to kind of talk through the different modeling methods and techniques. And so I'm not going to necessarily present a really refined way of creating this model. Like I'm going to be extremely efficient in the minimal use of lines and stuff. I want to give an opportunity to make some mistakes so that I can show you how to fix those. Okay. Because if I do it perfectly the first time and you run into a problem when you're trying to do it, then it's not very helpful. So I have Fusion up and running up here. First thing I'm going to do is save the drawing. So I'm going to go to File and Save. And this is going to institute the automatic save frame guide. If I can spell it correctly. There we go. All right. So it's going to start the automatic saving process. So that's good. Here's the frame guide, right? You've seen it. That's what I'm going to be working on. Let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is you want to sketch. Okay. So we can go to sketch, and I'm going to sketch on this back surface over here. So I'm going to click on that plane, and Fusion is going to reorient itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically start drawing lines. So I'm going to come over here and go about 107 out, because that's the total width there. I'm not going to dimension. By the way, stay away from that check mark. That check mark ends the command, so we don't want to do that. So I'm going to come up a little bit, go over, go up here, come over like this, and down, and like so. Okay. Now, you might be thinking, whoa, wait a second. That looks terrible. It's okay, because we're sketching. And sketching is really meant to be a bit rough, just like regular sketching. We're going to refine this with geometric and dimensional constraints, which we need to do. So it's almost a lost cause if you're overly precise with your sketching. This is not AutoCAD. This is not the way you draw in AutoCAD. Okay, so we want to get that out of the way right here. This is not AutoCAD. So I'm going to finish the line command, hit escape, and then open back up here. So maybe before I put in those curves, because this is super easy to deal with, maybe I'll go ahead and add some dimensions to this, right? These are dimensional constraints. So now, while I'm doing this, here, let me do this. Let me add a geometric constraint. Let me put this in here. I want this line to be vertical, so I add that constraint to it. Everything else looks vertical. Basically, that constraint is a horizontal or vertical constraint, and so it's going to turn that line into a vertical line or a horizontal line, depending on which it's closest to. These are all 90-degree angle or perpendicular constraints, so then everything else is good. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to the dimensional constraint. Now, let me say this. Dimensional constraints and dimensions in a drawing are two completely different things. Okay? These dimensional constraints will not appear on your drawing. Right? They're just to constrain the sketch or the geometry in the sketch. So I'm going to get the width across here as 107. Okay? I'm going to get the width across this at 11, and I'm going to do the width across here. So watch, I'm going to pick these two lines, and I'm going to come over here, and instead of typing in 11, I want this to be driven by the other dimension that is the width right here. So I'm going to click right there and assign D2. What is D2? D2 is the 11. So dimension 2 is now assigned in 2 different places. And notice this says function 11. This is what we're talking about, what I'm talking about when I say Fusion is a parametric modeling software. We can use parameters, not just numbers, but equations and functions to create the three-dimensional shape. Okay? So we got that. Last thing I'm going to put in there is I'm going to put from the center here to this edge, I'm going to make that 51. Okay. Oh, wait, I lied. Not last thing. Let's go from here to here. And let's make that 41. Okay. All right, so let's put in those curves. So I'm going to put in the circle. I'm going to put a circle in here. Now, make sure that you note Fusion is asking for a diameter here, and the dimension in the frame guide drawing is a radius. So I need to put in, it's a radius of 30, so I need to put a diameter of 60 in there. And I'm going to put another circle right here. Notice how I'm using the origin right here. It's a good technique to always make use of your origin. It helps to orient your parts, and it's a good reference point. You don't have to orient it by the origin, but gosh, it makes a big mess if you don't. And then this is going to be 38.1. I'll just use the upper limit of size on that. Okay. And now I need to trim some of this, so I'm going to go to the trim command right here, trim, and let's get rid of that, and that, and that, and I'm going to get rid of that, and this. There we go. We'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. Whoops, I took away too much right there, so let's undo that. Let's undo that. Let's undo that. There we go. So let's try to go back again, and we'll take that off. There we go. And we take that off. There we go. Okay, so I don't know why I did that before, but you know, that's what the undo command is for. All right, so it's still not constrained, fully constrained, and I can tell that because I have some black lines which are constrained, but then I also have some blue lines here. So I kind of want to see what is unconstrained because, you know, I need to know how I can attack this and finish the constraint. So I'm going to hit escape a couple times, and now I'm going to go to a blue line, and I'm just going to try to move it and see what happens. So if I click and hold, and it doesn't really move. Ah, look at that. So we see what the problem is. What is the problem? It's not constrained to the origin. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go to a horizontal constraint, and I'm going to pick this corner right there, and I'm going to constrain it horizontal to this point. And look, as soon as I do that, everything turns black. So now this is locked. It has 0 degrees of freedom left. All right, it can't rotate or translate. It can't move. It's locked in space relative to the origin. Everything is defined. It's black. Okay. Now, I would also like to say the sketch, you can see it's constrained by the lock. Okay. If I don't see the lock, then it's not constrained. All right. So far, so good. So let's finish that sketch. Let's go to an isometric view, and let's extrude this. So now we want to go to the extrude command, and I'll extrude it. How far do I want to extrude it? 48. Okay, and we made a new body there. All right, so what to do next? What to do next? Let's deal with this surface right here. So we go to sketch. I'm going to pick this surface right here. Let's zoom in a little bit. And I love using the rectangle command because it makes things a lot easier. So I'm going to make sure I'm attached to the top surface, and I'm going to do a rectangle right there, and then I'm going to put a circle in the center. Now notice as I move over, let me see if I can zoom in. As I move over, I get the midpoint object snap to show up. So I want that because I want the center to be locked in there. That assigns a geometric constraint. So I am constraining it there. That is a geometric constraint. So, you know, anytime I can assign a geometric constraint in the process of sketching, so much the better. That removes a step. Okay. All right, so that looks good. Let's clean this up before we constrain it. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of this. Now we want to get the shape down, so we'll dimension the width across here is going to be 13. All right, now you see that. That tells me that that's not tangent, so there's no tangential constraint. So I go to tangent. I'm going to pick that, and I want that to be tangent. Oh, look over here. I need this to be tangent with that. All right, so far so good. Now we need a dimension from here to here. Oh, look, I did the same thing in the video. No, I want the opposite dimension. So what do I mean by that? I want to dimension it from the bottom to the center. Why? Because that's the dimension that's given in the figure. Don't do math, okay? I know it's weird for an engineer, and yeah, I'm an engineer many years, so don't do math if you don't have to, all right? So there we go. Now I want to get this oriented, and this is a little bit tricky. This is kind of a trick. It took me a little bit to figure this out in Fusion, but I'll share it with you now. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that this shape is centered on this surface, okay? And so basically I want this point right here, which is the center of my shape. I want this point to line up right there with the midpoint of this line. So how do I do that? Okay, watch. I'm going to go to the horizontal vertical because this is my alignment constraint. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click on this corner, or excuse me, this center, and then I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and I'm going to move over that line until the center object snap crops up, or constraint pops up, and I'm going to click, and look at that. Now it turns all black, so we're ready to go. Finish your sketch. Go to an isometric mode. Let's go to Extrude. I'm going to click inside here. Notice we don't want to create a new body. We want to cut. And which side do we want to cut? We want to cut this way. And I think I talked about this in the video. We don't want to just say any old distance, right? We want to go to Extents, Distance, to Object, and pick this surface so that it goes to that object. We say, okay. Cool. All right. So let's do a couple other things. Fillets and rounds. There's a big, these two edges are rounded with a radius of 6. Or is it a 5? I can't see that. I think it's a 5. It's a 5. It's a 5. It's a 5. So we'll go like this. We'll go fillet. I'm going to pick that edge. I'm going to pick that edge. Whoops, it didn't get this one. That edge, and I'm going to do a 5. All right. And then we need to do the same up here. These are radius 13. I can definitely see that better. So I'm going to pick this surface and that, or excuse me, edge, not surface, edge. And we'll go 13, like so. Okay. Now let's deal with the holes. I'm not sure how Tyler did the holes. But I do notice that the center of these arcs here, these rounds, also are the center of the holes. And so Fusion has some tools that can help me find that and create an easy hole. So I'm going to use the hole command here. And when you're using the hole command, first you want to identify the surface where the hole is going to start. So I'm just going to pick here. And then I'm going to grab, see if I move over this little blue dot, I get the manipulator hand. I'm going to slide this over, and it's going to lock into the center. See how it had those little points pop up? So it's trying to be intelligent. It's trying to say, hey, you know what? I bet you want to assign it or locate it to this center. And if you do, it'll drop right in there. And then we come over here. This is going to be a simple hole, and the diameter is going to be 10. Okay, and the distance that we want to go again is 2, and we're going to pick the bottom surface. Why am I doing this? Why do I do it 2 and not just drag it all the way through? Because in parametric modeling, there's always a chance that we can come back to our sketch and change some, in this case, maybe a thickness. If we change the thickness and we didn't extend that hole all the way through the entire new thickness, then we're going to have a hole that stops. So this way, if I update the thickness of this, the hole will update automatically. All right, so we go like that. Here we go. And yeah, I know there's another one. So I'm going to put that right there. It'll remember that last one, and I can drop it right in there. And everything, we go to, go like this. We go OK. And last but not least, actually we got a couple things. We got to put in fillets. All right, and we got to put this hole in the middle. Let's put the hole in there first. I'm going to sketch, but notice I can't sketch on this curved surface, right? So really, what I can do is I can sketch on this bottom plane, right there. Sketch on that bottom plane. And it's going to show me a top view. I have this hump in the middle, but I can just ignore that. I'll show you a couple things you can do. First of all, you can just ignore it, right? So I can go ahead and draw my circle right there, because that's all this is. Yes, I know I'm drawing it off center. I like to draw it off center. Why? Because then I can see it align, right? So it's unconstrained. I want to come in here and constrain it, and I'm going to, how is it dimensioned? It's 24 from the front. So I'll go from the front to here, and we'll go 24. And we want to align it from the center here to here. Oops, did I miss it? There we go. All right. And it's still blue. Why? Because I don't have a diameter on it. And that diameter is 5. All right, so now it's black. So how else could I do this? Well, I'm just going to undo all this stuff and show you. How else could we do that? Well, remember we got this hump in the way. How do we get rid of that hump? We come over here to slice. Slice is going to take everything away that's in front of the sketch plane. All right. So we can slice and get rid of that. I don't like doing this because I want to see the shape, but we can go like this and then turn that on. All right, and we can see that. I don't really like that. That's not a good example for doing that, but there is slice, and that's how that works. All right, so let me put the stuff back that I just undid. 24. We go to vertical, and we take this, and we assign it there. And then we go to dimension, and we assign it here, and that's a 5. And we go finish that, and we come like this. And now I want to extrude this all the way through. Again, to object, I could come to this top surface right there. It's going to cut. I'm going to say OK, and then that's it. Okay. Now, last but not least, I got 1, 2, 3 fillets to put. All of them are radius 2. So I'm going to go to the fillet tool. I'm going to click on this edge, I'm going to click on this edge, and I'm going to click on this edge, and I'm going to type in 2 and fillet it. And ladies and gentlemen, that is done. Okay. Now let me save this. And let's talk for a little bit about this. Okay, so first of all, my sketches. My sketches are all fully constrained. I can look at them by just hitting the visibility button right there. Okay. So you can see that one right there. I can turn on this back one. I can turn on that one. If you make a mistake in Fusion, you can go back to your sketch and fix it. So I can go back to sketch 1. I can right click and say edit sketch. And it takes me back here. And if I change something, if I change this to, let's say, 10, notice that this also changed. And then I finish my sketch. The whole model will update. Okay, the whole model will update. I have one body. There it is right there. Right? I don't have two bodies, one that's hidden, anything like that. Right? If we go down to the timeline, this is where I can see chronologically how my part was made. So if I grab this marker on the end, I can come back here one step and you can see it before I added the fillets. I can come back here before I added the holes. At any point here, I can go back and change things. So let's say, for example, that this fillet right there, that was not the right size. So I can right click over this and say edit feature and change that to a 6. Right? 6. And everything updates after that. All right. So Fusion is very powerful in the sense that we can edit just about anything that we've drawn, right? Whether it's through the browser or whether it's through the timeline. Okay. So this is done. I'm ready to go. I've already saved it, but I'll save it again. And we will close this, and I will upload this to Canvas. All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.